one of the last things I would say is selfie style content is actually super effective, and it breaks my video production heart to say that. But like selfie style outperforms highly produced video over and over again. And it's upsetting and also just the way that it is. So, but it makes it a lot easier to make content. So that's a good thing, right?
Welcome to Show Me the Nuggets, where each week Joe chats with world-class entrepreneurs to find out the key principles, strategies, and processes that lie behind their outstanding achievements. Now, your host, the no bullshit serial entrepreneur, Joe Troyer.
Hey everybody, it's Joe Troyer, and I am super excited to be bringing on yet another awesome entrepreneur. I got Shaina Weisinger on the phone with me or on the call with me. And Shaina, did I butcher your name really bad? I'm sorry.
No, you said it perfectly. That never happens. So thank you.
Hey, so I always feel super bad talking with my guests. I'm like, did I say it right? So awesome. So Shaina, welcome officially to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, 100%. So for those of you guys that don't know Shaina runs a company called Repurpose House. And you guys know me, I'm huge on repurposing, right? And taking one piece of content and turning it into multiple pieces of content and really making sure that I'm leveraging my time as an entrepreneur. So I'm excited to hang out with Shaina and share what she's up to. And I'm sure that for a lot of you guys out there and a lot of you agencies, this is going to make a lot of sense to you guys. So Shaina, before we kind of dive deep, will you just kind of bring us up to speed on Wake Brand Media and then the change to Repurpose House and kind of the crazy fast business pace you've been working?
Yeah. I mean, long story, still kind of long. I have been doing video production for 6 years. I started Wake Brand Media out of like a total need to just, I lost my job and I was doing freelance work for a business coach. And while I was doing that freelance, I was doing all types of digital marketing, but a lot of video production because that was my background. It's what I went to school for. We went to the Infusionsoft conference that year and we were running around with cameras like, how do you promote a business coach and make him look awesome? Like he has a booth. I'm like, nobody cares really. What's exciting about this? So I was like, how do we create hoopla? We were running around, me and a couple other people with cameras and lights, like totally overkill. I didn't need all that, but we wanted to create buzz, right? And as we're running around, like interviewing people about his tagline, so many entrepreneurs came up to me and they were like, even like medium-sized businesses were like, listen, do you do video for businesses? We know we need it. And the vast majority came back with two scenarios. It was either they had gotten a really great deal on video and they got burned. Because everybody can film, with a DSLR and iMovie, or they thought it was like extremely expensive. They were paying five, maybe six figures for like 1 to 2 pieces of content that they were going to slap on YouTube and like hope it does something. So out of that, I got a little frustrated and I was like, I can't believe these are the only two options people think they have. Let's start a video production company that has like a marketing strategy baked in. And for me, it was not about like, let's make one massively highly produced video. Let's look at your strategy and see like where people are going to see this content, because all of that content needs to have different messaging, different lengths, different like anywhere you place content, you have to think about where that person is going to be in their journey when they're watching it. And if you're going to hit them on Facebook with an ad, you don't want to talk about like something, they don't know you, they don't care, like they don't care how awesome you are, they want to get something that is valuable to them. So it was basically creating strategic planning for video production. So in doing that, I started to do a lot of video podcasts, and to me that was amazing because it was all value-based content, right? You're giving. And I had been promoting that for years and people just still wanted to make videos about how cool they were. And I was like, maybe let's give some content. So in doing the video podcast, I started pitching that to existing podcasters who were doing really, really well. But part of what I was offering was, listen, we'll also take these long podcasts and turn them into the micro assets. So we'll do the video memes with the big bold text on top. I'd done the research on what statistically works best with captions and sizes. And they were kind of like, yeah, like the video thing is cool and all, but if you just gave us those assets, like we would do that all day long. And I was like, okay. And I heard that multiple times over and over. I was like, well, there's something here. And upon research, I found out nobody was doing this, or at least not doing it consistently or well in a way that can scale. And I was like, all right, there's something here. So I started a company called Podcast Memes, and I was only doing this for podcasters, which was interesting because I heart podcasters big time. Like I had to dive into that world and learn a lot about because I need to understand how that world works in order to help them. But I realized quickly that podcasters in general were not the right demographic. A lot of them are doing it as like hobbies and just, they're not monetizing, which is fine. It's great. It's one of the reasons why this platform's so great. But the ones that were like, this is a no-brainer, we'll pay you whatever you want. Like we're getting so much out of this. We're actually digital marketers who were using podcasting as an arm of their marketing. And I was like, okay, well, let's refresh here. So I rebranded to Repurpose House in November. And this was last summer with podcast memes. Rebranded to Repurpose House, decided that we needed to be able to repurpose any piece of content. So went from just video and audio to blog posts, any type of video, any type of audio books. I mean, you name it. And it's been crazy ever since.
That's awesome. Quite the story. So how long was that transition in that timeline from when you started the company, right? And then you did the rebrand up until now? What's that journey been?
So I started Podcast Memes in July of 2018, and I rebranded to Repurpose House in November. It was pretty much a snap knee-jerk decision. I had one come to Jesus meeting with Sarah, my VP of Ops, and I was like, we are bashing our head into the wall trying to pitch this concept. And we know that it works. And for some people, it's a no-brainer, and other people are just like not even having it. What's the common denominator in the people who are like, this is a no-brainer? And that's when we kind of looked at everybody and we're like, oh my gosh, there are companies who are using this as one piece of marketing. And that's when the switch took place.
That's amazing. So how's the kind of content factory work, right? You guys get some content from your customers, then what happens? Explain the journey. I'm really big on repurposing and making the most out of every single piece of content. I know that we're going to be doing that a ton with the podcast. I create video content every day that then gets repurposed all over the place, emails and memes and everything. But I'm curious to hear your process, because I think our process is okay, but I got to be frank, like it's a little bit of a struggle. It takes a lot of input from me to keep that thing running, and without me, it would be dead. So I'd love to have you kind of bring everybody up to speed, and I'm sure that there's some things that I can learn as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as how like the Repurpose House factory works, we specialize specifically in repurposing content for social media. So we're not going to take like a long form webinar and turn it into a blog post for you. That's just not our wheelhouse. There are other companies who do that stuff really well, and it's not us. We'll take the long form in any form, like this podcast, for example. You're doing it in video, you can do it in audio, put it on Libsyn. I'm sure you're streaming it. But we'll take that long form, and you'll basically submit a ticket. You'll say, here's the link to the audio. Here's what I want my headline to look. We have already created multiple template sets for you to consistently rotate through. So you'll say, I want template set A because that is what corresponds to my podcast. You just basically give a little bit of information on headline, the in and out points that you want done. And we will turn that into, by the next morning, 8 a.m., square size video meme. Stories, actually, we're doing Instagrams or IGTV size that then can be cropped down into your feed, because that's the new cool thing that Gary's doing. So we all do it, right? And then also landscapes, you can put it on YouTube, get that SEO, and then we'll do the image quote cards in all three of those sizes too. And then thumbnails for everything. So we do Facebook ad thumbnails and making sure that everything's under 20% of the text, and then the landscape size, so you can throw that on YouTube. So essentially, it's like you get that 2-minute clip, but you get it 8 different ways by the next morning. And I'm a big fan of front loading. Like if you can't front load your content strategy, like you're really doing yourself a massive disservice. And that still holds true for like how you then submit content to be repurposed. But one thing that we've learned is the pain point that we're finding from a lot of our clients, or we were, at least the reason we were getting churn, is because people don't have time to even submit those tickets in the first place, right? Like they don't have time to go through the episode and find 3 in and out points at an hour. So we just implemented being able to do that for you. So it's basically like, okay, you get 5 tickets a week. How many of those do you want us to do for you? And then you have the remaining left over to do yourself, to like have open for content that isn't consistently being, output. Yeah.
So that's beautiful. So you guys find some examples. Here's a 2-minute clip that we think would be really good, right? And I'm assuming you probably grab a couple of those and then say, which one do you want us to do?
But initially we have like an onboarding call, because the different part about that setup is you'll have your own content curator, and that's all that they do. They're digital marketers. But it's more of an agency relationship when it pops into that, because you need to understand the voice, the audience, where it's going to live, like what the biggest like points you want to drive home are. So we'll have an onboarding meeting where we go through all of that. Also, what's your content strategy look like? So do you want us to do the podcast? Do you want us to do a testimonial every week? Where does it all live? And then there's, just as with any relationship, where if you're training somebody on the team or starting with an agency, there's going to be a little bit of back and forth in the first like handful of submissions. But once we nail it and get there, it's smooth sailing from there.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. I think the hardest part for me has definitely been finding those quotes.
Yeah.
right? And I find my team, like, they'll give me like 10. And I'm like, yeah, there's like maybe one in here, and you definitely cut it at the wrong spot. Like, actually, it should be here. So that's been a struggle, and I can imagine for you guys as well, especially so many different niches and clients and doing different things. You guys have created something amazing if you figure that out.
Thank you. Yeah. When that is one of those things where it really is dependent on the business. Like, you may be way more picky about the pieces that you want repurposed than another business. And some people are just like, listen, we just know we need consistent content going out there. As long as it's like in the wheelhouse of what we know we need to be creating, then great. Some people are more hands-on than others, and that's in any business and with any type of marketing. So it really depends on the client.
So like in the last 12 months, 18 months, like what do you see as the difference kind of in video marketing, right? Like, what's happening, what's changing, right? You just talked about IGTV. What else is kind of happening in the space that people need to pay attention to?
Yeah, repurposing has really just started to become something that people talk about a lot more. It was kind of a best kept secret for a hot second there.
Yep.
And it's a good thing for me, with this business, that people are understanding the value that they can get out of their existing content, which is really cool. But that is really the big one right now. A lot of people are talking about it. I'm starting to see more people do it, which is really cool. Like, you'll see people actually format it right. And you're like, yes, you put captions on your videos. But things like actually taking existing content, repurposing it. The IGTV thing is really cool. I think everybody was trying to figure out a way to put longer form content on Instagram, because the problem is you have a great 2-minute clip you can put on Facebook, and then you're like, well, now I got to trim that down even further, or it's unusable on Instagram, right? So now being able to post to IGTV and just making sure it's formatted properly to be cropped into the feed if you choose to do that, like, that I think is a really cool change that I see being, it's Instagram allowing you to get away with longer content, which is super cool. One of the last things I would say is selfie style content is actually super effective, and it breaks my video production heart to say that. But like, selfie style outperforms highly produced video over and over again. And it's upsetting, and also just the way that it is. So, but it makes it a lot easier to make content. So that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, I love it. My best ads, my best videos are definitely off the cuff, selfie style. I have an idea, I grab my phone, I quite literally go like this and walk around the office, and it does the best bar none. And even I've tested with and without editing, right? And so like, even like a little bit at the beginning of like me getting in frame or something, and I've left it, and it's performed better than the one that doesn't. And people are commenting like, wow, this is so real.
I believe it.
Crazy.
Yeah, because people want to
what do you
feel
mean?
like
I was just lazy and didn't edit it. What do you mean?
well, that's real, right? Yeah, people want to feel like they're seeing the behind the scenes, the actual person, not the production piece. I think that, and what's so interesting about that is now I think a lot of people are taking that to the next level, where it's obviously planned and they're making, it's still like produced, but it's coming across like it's actual natural footage, which is interesting. It's the world we live in. So
it's funny. Like I left in like me like taking my finger like this to hit the stop button, like quite literally, and it worked.
Good.
And it was great. So yeah, I see that happening big time. And I think everybody still is in the mindset though that it's got to be some like crazy produced video. And I'm thankful that it's not, because it makes my life easy. I don't do well with a big green screen and a whole formal shot. It takes me forever to do content, and I just like, let's do it again. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. It'll take all day for me to get out anything worthwhile. So I'm sure that's had a big impact on your business though, right? Like, just the ease now.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's funny because I think people get into their own head about needing this highly produced content, and something that I can just keep on reiterating to people is like, it's so much easier. Like the devices we have right here are way more effective than the first cameras I was buying for my video production company. It shoots in 4K. What world are we living in where this is a thing that we can do? And you can still make it look good with that. Like, you can still figure out nice ways for it to be lit well. Like, you don't want hard shadows under your eyes. You can figure out better ways to get your audio done. But like, ultimately for $30, it can still look really clean, but also like selfie style. And you can just crank it out as on a whim. But I try to, again, like the front loading thing is really important. I'll just tell people, like, create a running doc on your phone or like a task list or whatever of topics that just pop up to you during the day. And you're like, oh, I really think that I should talk about this. Or I had a call with this guy about this one thing. I need to think to talk about that, or that anybody even had questions about that. And if you have that running list, then you know that like when you have 30 minutes to shoot selfie style video, you've got your phone on you, I'm sure. Go by a window and just start shooting them, and you don't have to post them all in the like consecutively, but at least you have it now as content that you can post when you're ready to.
100%. Completely agree. Yeah, I think for me, I always tell people like frequently asked questions, should ask questions, right? Like I do a weekly webinar that I use for my content ideas too. It's like my content farm. So like I do a Q&A session, an AMA every week, and that's what I end up using to kind of repurpose. I'll either repurpose right from the webinar and it's me on camera like this, or I'll do I'll recut it and I'll reshoot it. And that's my content ideas. And it's an hour long every week. And I automate all of my content through that one piece.
That's so smart. And that's like one of the key ways on repurposing, especially the fact that you're asking questions at the end. So you're answering questions that you know are being asked. So it's like, that's obvious content right there. Awesome. Super cool.
Okay, cool. When you look at your customers that are like crushing it with your guys' strategies, like how are they making the most of it? Are they doing ads? Are they using this stuff for retargeting? Are they like just being everywhere is kind of the big aha moment? Like what are the things that are really hot right now?
Yeah, we actually did a case study with one of our clients who uses HubSpot. And what was cool about that is they're like avid HubSpot users from the very beginning. So they track everything. Like I have data on every single post, where it landed, what happened after they landed, the type of people. So that's like one case study I love to circle around to, because they did $0 ad spend on it. They are like content kings. They are incredible. They produce so much, but they did this case study on just this one content type. So they have a show called Event Icons, and they're an event company. They do AV, and they have a show where every week they talk to industry experts, and you have to like opt in to actually watch it live. But then they do replays and things like that. We just focused on repurposing that show. So it's once a week, kind of like your webinar, right? And we would take that and do shorter clips up to 2 minutes that were really impactful. And their biggest push was just making sure that they staggered the content across multiple platforms on different days. Like you don't want to put the one clip on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn groups. You need to stagger it, because you don't know who's on each platform multiple times. Maybe they saw it one way and it made more sense for them in like their LinkedIn mind. You know what I mean? As opposed to Instagram. They were adjusting the copy up top also, because that could have been what deterred the person from watching on one platform than another. And then also being able to post it in groups. Like they're active in groups on LinkedIn. They're active in groups on Facebook. You can't just go into those groups and start posting your own content, because you'll get booted real fast. But if you're an active contributor, you're answering questions, you're engaging consistently, then it's a lot more forgiving when you give content, and especially if it's not yours truly talking about something awesome. If it's an industry expert, it's totally different. But they were tracking all of this organic posting that they were doing. And just from that one piece of content, turning it into like 7 different assets, they increased their site hits by 100% and their opt-ins and contacts by 300%. And that's zero ad spend. That's just brand awareness and just driving traffic to the longer form content on their site where they have an opt-in where they can gather info. And to me, like I was expecting a bigger, like a good return, but that to me was really exciting on zero ad spend. So on our site, actually, we kind of go through the exact of like what they did, how they did it, that whole deal. But for them, it was a lot of staggering. It was a lot of posting in different types of ways. Like they did images individually, and then they did images in albums. So it's just being creative on how much mileage that they could get out of each content piece and on how many platforms they could post it.
100%. So when you do stuff like this, are you doing a call to action like in every video? You doing every couple of videos? How do you control kind of the call to actions, or what do you guys suggest? Or if somebody wants to go and repurpose, like where do you draw the line, so to speak?
So are you talking about like for their content, like what was their call to action? So what we do, you have to be strategic in how you do that, first of all, because you can't just be like, here's great content, also buy from me. Like that turns people off. It's like having a really great first date and then, asking for them to, go all the way, if you will. It's kind of a little off-putting. Maybe have a couple dates first. But what they'll do, and, you also have to be strategic, like based on the platform, like you can't put a link to your full-length content in Facebook's copy because they're going to diminish how many views you get on it. So what we'll do is on the template sets, we will have on the bottom of that thing, like we'll do like a short link, or if the link makes sense, like for them, it's endless events / whatever. And so if you have a link that is easy to just remember and have them type in, we'll do that. But it's not like a hard ask. Like at the end of these videos, they're not like, make sure you go watch the whole video. It's the content and that's it. And if somebody feels moved to actually go and go one further, then the link's right there the whole time for them to watch the whole episode. Sometimes people will be like, link in the comments or link in bio, and that's fine, because you still want to give people an option to view the long form content. But this is all like organic education based content. Like there are other ways where you actually are retargeting and you want like a really hard ask at the end, but that's just for this case study how they were doing it to get people to the site and opting in.
So what do you think are the strategies that people are using right now kind of to switch it up that aren't working so well? What are the things that are like so old school? It's like, man, you guys are such a big brand. Like, what are you doing? You're hurting yourself, right? Like, what are the things that you're just, amazed that people are still doing these days?
Not using video. I cannot understand it. It's been so statistically proven that it is a powerhouse piece of content. I don't care if you're taking a blog and turning it into text motion. If it's a podcast, you're turning it into like a waveform, audiogram, like to just put imagery, stock imagery, even, I can't. So like to just put imagery and to just do copy blows my mind. And there are large companies who don't utilize video nearly as much, if at all, that like they should. And it's so easy to produce. Like we have all seen, like we're just talking about selfie style videos. Like I had Dennis Yu on one of our episodes, and he was talking about, he did a case study a paid study with one of his massive nationwide brands. It was a furniture store, and they did a comparison on the type of content. So they had like one highly produced, really great nationwide video that they created, and he had the owner then do a selfie style video. And the owner's like, I don't like, really, you just want me on camera? Because the thought is like, nobody cares about me. And the selfie style video of the owner like crushed the highly produced one. And it's because people like businesses who think that they're like, oh, well, nobody cares about me or whoever on video are lying to themselves, because you put a face on camera. I don't care if it's yours or your marketing person or whatever. It's too easy to make content. There are no excuses to not make video content. 100%.
Completely agree. People want to buy from people. People want to do business with people that they can see and that they can buy into. And 100% completely agree. Have most of your customers leverage retargeting with all the assets that you guys are using? You think that's kind of a big leverage point for them, or they haven't seen that yet, or some of them are, or where do you see that line is?
I haven't seen a ton of people retargeting with the content. For a lot of them, it's brand awareness and consistency, which is great. I mean, you need to be doing that as well. Personally, I'm like, I want to know exactly what's happening. I want to know what is effective. Like I push that to happen a lot. I'm like, if you're not tracking it, then you don't know what's working. So then you don't know what to double down on. So, but I mean, we need to be doing, we're still new, like we're still scaling and growing our processes. That is what it is. It's the nature of a new business. But one of the things we're striving for and we're trying to do more of is continuous education for our current clients, so they are able to see like the value in what they're doing and being able to retarget and taking content pieces and piggybacking them off of like another content piece, which is super important to do. We also need to do more follow-up and finding out how people are utilizing their content and what they're seeing the results are. Obviously, the endless case study made sense because they are using HubSpot and tracking literally every single step they make. But I kind of want to circle back with you on that and see how people are really actually utilizing the content. But from what I'm seeing, at least, because we follow them all, is that a lot of them are just basically using it to just have 10 times more content on their social media than they had originally.
And it's obviously working, right? Like you said, like it's working like gangbusters. So for us, we're doing a lot of stuff with the retargeting, not just on one platform, right? Like not just Facebook, not just Google, like if somebody's doing well, so to speak, in our experience, they're doing it on one platform, and that's kind of it. So we've been doing a lot of repurposing for our customers because we've had to, just because we're doing retargeting and we're doing it across all the platforms, right? So we're having to create different versions and variations so that they will run on the different platforms, and they all have their rules and sizes and what they'll take and what they won't. And when I look at what you're doing, I'm like, holy crap, like if our customers had what you're doing and we could use that for ads, like it would be crazy.
Well, thanks. One of the reasons I made sure that the sizes were what they were, that they were optimized properly, is for people like you, like who understand how to use it for ads. That's why one of our assets are a thumbnail for that Facebook square video, because those square videos are not going to go through because they have too much text on them. And it's funny, I had to explain that to a lot of people what that is. But for somebody like you, you're like, you're giving me a thumbnail with under 20% text. I can run it as an ad now. I'm like, yes, those are the people who we made it for, So that's good. That's awesome.
100%. And so we're big components of retargeting, and specifically all the platforms. And then secondarily, we drop the frequency. because everybody's getting banner blindness and getting hit with the same ads. So to fight that, we drop our frequency to really low, and then we show lots of different ads. So every time it's like a brand new experience, right? So we really need to be working with somebody like you that can pop out some awesome ads. So
awesome. Well, like, are you basically using the same ad set on like same platforms? Or are you doing all of those different pieces, all those different types of ads across all of the platforms? Holy cow. That must be fun to look on. I would love to see the analytics of that. That would be pages of awesomeness.
It's crazy because the cost per view stays really, really low, right? And the CPMs are like great. The click-throughs are great because every time is like a new ad experience, and it doesn't seem like an ad because it's not so repetitive. Like, people just start to tune your stuff out, and like retargeting gets a great ROI as it is. But if you start to really hammer it like we are and changing things up all the time, it can be like forcing social consumption, just like how your clients are doing social already, and 10x the impressions and what's happening, and it's cheap, right? Like it's so the hardest part is setting up all the campaigns and doing all the ad creation. I mean,
for sure. Are you seeing a type of content, like obviously video is what I'm assuming you're talking mostly about, but like a type of content, like educational or like actual pitch content? Like, are you seeing a specific type of retargeting that's working best?
Definitely the selfie style videos is the best, right? Yeah. Like, bar none, it's the best. It just feels real, but we have clients kind of all over, so it's hard to pin besides that. Like, we have like local service businesses that are using it. We have then like people that are running, 8-figure funnels using it, right? So it's like they're completely different use cases, and one is, very crazy about the entire funnel and only show this ad after they've opted in, and you're right, like crazy sequencing. And a local business is just like, get them to come back as often as possible and, keep showing different ad creatives to the same people. So it's very different kind of perspectives, but I can definitely say that the selfie videos are the big winner for sure.
Awesome. That's awesome.
So when you look at somebody's existing content, right, and you want to go repurpose, like how would you do that? Or how would you suggest, like, if somebody's got a podcast that they've been running, like you talked about earlier, right, and it ran for a year, right, like what would you suggest to do? Like, what would your action steps be, whether it's text or video? Like, how can somebody get started like rapid fire fashion with repurposing, and get some quick wins, so then they can come to you and have you do it all for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So it really depends on the team or lack of team you have, and either way is fine. Like, you can be doing this yourself, or you can hire a VA to do it. There's a lot of different ways you can make it happen. The way that we've found is the quickest, most efficient way to take one piece of content and turn it into a bunch of stuff is to literally go through that piece of content, and as you're watching or listening or reading, have an Excel spreadsheet open and do your in and out points as you're watching it. Because what tends to happen, and what people are spending a lot of time that is unnecessary on, is they'll be like, okay, well, I need it from 4 different pieces, so I'm going to find one clip in this, and then I'm going to go to this piece, I'm going to find one clip over there. It's like, stop. You're already in one content piece. You may not repurpose that entire content piece 5 times in a row, but at least now you have a running doc of what you can repurpose, right? So getting through one piece of content, throwing your in and out points in there as you're watching it, being like, this is what the headline could be, and this would be a cool place for it. And then moving on and keep on going. Like, don't allow yourself to get stuck in it, because you're going to spend way more time than necessary on things that really aren't going to make that much of an impact. Really just get it done, especially if you're not doing it. Just get through it, get it done. So in like one podcast episode, you could probably get 5, 6 really great. I mean, if it's a 40-minute podcast, 30 minutes, you get a handful of 1 minute to 2 minute clips. Keep it under 2 minutes, because statistically, nobody cares anything after that. Usually it's like 90 seconds at the most. But just have the running doc and make sure that you know where that's at. And if you have like VAs or anybody who's helping you do any of this, like, have a shared doc, have them send stuff in. And like you're saying, sometimes people are coming to you with 10 pieces of content. You got to go through it. It's a heck of a lot easier for you to just hit that like in and out point and be like, okay, this is great, but let's start it 4 seconds earlier because we need like some context, right? That's been the way that we do it with our clients. So we'll know that like, okay, we repurpose the podcast once a week, but we also know that we're going to take a blog post and turn that, maybe it won't be the next week's piece of content, but it may be 4 weeks out, but we don't have to now go back to that same piece of content and figure out what another really great pool is going to be. Front-loading. It's like the theme of today is front load your content. Just front load everything you do so that you don't have to be in it every single day.
So let's take a different scenario. Let's say that somebody doesn't have any content, right? Somebody comes to you and they're like, Shayna, this is amazing. I want to do this. What do I do? Like, what's your instructions? Like, how do you package it up to them? What kind of system do you give them, or what do you tell them? How should they handle that? You got to get a bunch of front loaded content, right? Like you just said.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? How do you go from none to a lot?
That's an interesting question. I actually literally had that question yesterday, and I was like, let's start with one thing. What is your goal? Like, what is your end game? Like, I need to know what your call to action is and what you want them to do, best case scenario. And if that is go to your website and opt into something, like that tells me like a little bit more about kind of the journey that person needs to go on. Also, like, what are you promoting? Like you said, you got to know there's so many different like ambiguous elements, but personally, I know that you cannot go wrong with educating at all. So if you can start, like I said, that's that thing on your phone where you're going through and like, this would be a great topic. This is a question I get a lot. Just start loading those in and then just do a big block of unloading that kind of footage. Like I have kind of a background on that because I did video production for so long and I was all about being efficient with time, So it's like, bring a couple of shirts, change your shirt, like change your environment. Don't make it all like, hey, I filmed 15 videos with my phone like in 10 minutes, but like you can still change it up and be strategic and not make it feel like you just sat there and cranked it all out. There is one video, like a series that I did where I literally just did 5 videos in the same outfit and I was like exhausted, but I'm talking about front loading and that's why I'm being honest. So that was the tip. But like, if you can get it all done, get as much educational content out there as possible, and then drive it somewhere that makes sense. Like, don't just be like, go to the website and then buy my stuff. Like, have something longer form that is actually there for them to partake in, that helps them in their business, helps them in their lives, whatever it is that you're selling to the world, if you will. But you definitely cannot go wrong with educating and keeping it short and sweet. And like you said, super organic, like just being like a normal person.
Do you give any tips in terms of like script kind of outline, like do this, then do that, then do this, or just let it flow naturally, just give a tip, whatever?
So I recommend, only because I've been on the production side of people going on tangents and having to cut that in post. So I would say like have your topic and then create your like 3 bullet points, because what you don't want to do is then create a piece of content that was supposed to be 90 seconds and it's 5 minutes and now you have to reshoot it. Like, get to the point, know what you're going to say. You don't have to like have it scripted by any means, but at least like have an idea. And truthfully, the first time you do this, it's going to suck. Like you're going to feel like you're wonky. You're not going to, if you don't do a lot of like video in general, it's not going to be comfortable. You are going to ramble. It's okay. But watch it back. Like film the first couple, watch it back, see what you're doing that's really annoying, because inevitably you will be. I mean, I'll say the word like 1,000 times, and then you can start noticing things that you're doing and then adjust as you go. But just know that it's not going to be perfect, but also have a framework a little bit for yourself, just to keep yourself on task and on point. Eventually, you may not need it as much, but if you're just starting, you have to keep task in some capacity, because you don't want to have to reshoot it all. Like that's a bigger bummer than having to do it in the first place if you're not excited about it, So for me, definitely, I think batching is huge, right? Like my first 3 videos is going to suck. 4, 5, and 6 is just going to progressively get better and better. And so I personally won't shoot unless I have at least 30 minutes, right? Because I know that if I shoot for 10 minutes or if I shoot for 30, I'm going to get the same amount of stuff out of it that's really usable. Right. Absolutely. That's a great way to look at it.
And then let's see, what else? For my headlines and the intros, I always try to have a little bit of a formula. So it's like how to do blank without blank, right? Or a case study or something, just to make it easy. And then, like 3 or 4 bullet points and then a call to action. I think that should help everybody listening, right? At least have some kind of route or direction to use, because getting started is the hardest part. Like once you get in and get going, it's super simple, obviously.
Yeah, you're totally right. It's just getting started is definitely the hardest part, the biggest pain point that I hear.
Okay, cool. So my team, when doing some research on bringing you on this podcast, found some interesting information, like super interesting.
Oh my God.
I would say that this is probably the opposite of what most people say on this podcast. And so I'm going to keep hyping this up, and eventually I'll actually ask the question. But it's pretty crazy. When I saw this, I was like, wow, and I'm just going to keep going and drawing it out. I'm just kidding. So everybody talks about scale, right? And work your face off and hustle and, scale and grow your business, right? And just grind it out. And you mentioned in your profile, right, in LinkedIn, that you tell people to scale down and to keep it simple. Can you elaborate on that?
So disclaimer. I saw that in the questions and I was like, that was pertaining specifically to video production. So it has since been modified because it talks about wake. And really where that came from is when I was heavy in video production, like I said, it was all about strategy. I would have people come in and be like, I need this crazy video and this massive video. And they would go like to this place where they think that they need all of this crazy, heavily produced stuff. And that's where I'd be like, stop, like just stop it. And for somebody who wants you to buy all of that stuff, like it was unique for me to be like, I'm not going to do that for you. So let's start small. Let's see like what do you need that's going to actually be the most effective, and let's just start there. And then when you see results from that, we can scale it up into this big stuff. But most of the time it would be like they think that they need like CGI and craziness. And I'm like, you need a selfie style video. And that was hard for me to be able to say, but it's the truth. And I think that a lot of people think that and that, that can also like lend itself to businesses in general and entrepreneurship. Like you think you have to do all of this stuff. And really, if you can just like focus on something very specific that you can be really good at and make sure that you're putting a lot of attention on that and doing it really, really well, I think that that's where you thrive. And that's really like in the video production piece where we're the most effective is it's like, let's be hyper specific. Let's get granular. Like, let's find out the simplest way to make this happen in the most effective way possible. And let's get rid of all the fluffy craziness, and that applies, I think, in life too.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, that really applies to your business too, right? Like you guys productized your service, right? Yeah. Most companies would charge probably 10x what you guys, right? What your current prices are. But you guys have gotten really, really, really good at a process, right? And you guys have made an amazing offer, right? And you figured out where to get your leverage and your scale, right? So that you guys can just hit the same process over and over versus doing everything from scratch every single time. So I think that ties in, right? Like with exactly what you're saying.
Absolutely. And there's like a very, very specific reason that it's like that. Constantly we're asked, like, do you do this? Like, do you post to social media? Do you write the copy? And I know that those are needs, I've toyed with like, okay, how far can we go with adding other pieces to this service without compromising how like specific and how process oriented we are. And really when it came down to it, I had to say no can we offer like copywriting? Yeah. Like, but is that going to be efficient for scale? And is that going to be something that we can really control consistently? No, because every business is different. I mean, we're already like stretching it with even picking the content to begin with, right? So we have to even prepare our clients to be like, listen, this is still something that is up for your discretion. Like, are we picking good clips for you? And the more feedback you give us, the better. But like, I think that when you start to dive into all of those elements that have to be fine-tuned and tailored to clients, it turns into more of an agency setup. And that's not what I wanted Repurpose House to be. I wanted it to be super simple, very scalable. You know what you're getting. It's consistent. We can create a really, really like clean workflow for internally, and also for clients know what to expect consistently. But it's hard to say no when you know that you can do those things. But it's, to the benefit of your growth not to.
100%. Definitely agree. I mean, you are, for lack of a better term, right? Like the design pickle of repurposing, right?
I say that. Actually, I know Russ. I went to the Philippines with Design Pickle a year and a half, 2 years ago. And it's one of the reasons I started this company. I was doing video production for them. And two things happened. I was doing testimonials of their designers because they couldn't keep up with their skill in hiring people in the Philippines. So my job was to document this really amazing team building week that they had created, and then also get the testimonials on the experience that the employees had had. And I was in tears a couple of times over how much their lives have been impacted by consistent work by a company who actually cares about them. They're doing what they're passionate about. They have weekends off. They can hang out with their kids at night. Like, I was blown away by what Russ had created. And then during that same week, Russ sat me down and he's like, what you're doing isn't scalable. So you need to figure it out. I was like, geez, I don't even know you very well, dude. Now we're like good friends. But I have no problem saying I literally carbon copied their model and just made it specific to repurposing. And so far it's been amazing. And he's been a huge help in showing me like, the ways that he's stumbled and been like, don't do this, don't make the same mistakes, which has been a massive help for sure.
100%. So what would you call the model? A productized service? do you have a different name for it, right? Like
that's kind of where it lands. It's a productized service. I mean, it's essentially a service, like we're service based, but it's also a recurring like product type. So it's interesting because it doesn't really have a specific term that I can nail down, but that's the closest I can come.
Okay, so for other like agency owners, so to speak, that are going to be watching this from our crowd, what would you tell them about a design pickle type of service or a productized service? Like, who would you advise to maybe go towards the model? Who would you advise maybe to not go towards the model? Like, what advice would you give others, kind of looking back, so to speak?
Yeah, if you can find something that is a very specific need. It's really hard to do productized service if you aren't very clear on what you're delivering and you're okay with, like I said, not exploring all of these other avenues. I mean, there's always room to grow and become more of a resource to your clients, but you need to be very, very clear on what it is that you do, what it is you want to offer, and be comfortable in that being it. And if you are really good at creating systems and processes and sticking to them and being fluid in adjusting those as you see like issues arising and having foresight on how that machine can break in the future, because it will. Like no machine is perfect and it's always ever evolving. Then I think that you can be definitely a good fit for that. I think the biggest part is just finding something that people consistently say that they need and making sure that you've created a super efficient system out of it and being able to say no. We have people ask us for specific things constantly. One of the things that I get asked is, well, we don't need the monthly service. Can we just get like a 10 pack? I'm like, no, it's not how it works. Like, and I'm okay with saying that, and that's okay. But it doesn't work for multiple reasons. It doesn't work for our business model because we work on a monthly workflow. And also like our employees are all full-time. They get benefits. Like if we do a 10 pack, we're not going to hire somebody just to do your 10 pack. Like, and then in addition to that, like if you're repurposing and you're doing the best practices that we're trying to teach you or that you already know, consistency is key and you should be a client and you should want to be monthly as opposed to a one-off random pack that is really not doing for you what I intended the service to do in the first place.
So then before we got on, I know that you mentioned white labeling and that a lot of people white label your services. I know that potentially we got a lot of agencies watching this that would be interested in potentially working with you guys. Can you talk just a little bit about how that would work or how you guys do that and kind of how people package it or what you see in terms of working with agencies?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I love agencies. With like video production, if I worked with an agency, I was way happier than working with a client just because they get it. Like it's one touch point. I heart them. So agencies were like an obvious outreach for us because they get it. They like understand how to even utilize the assets. Like there's still everybody can always learn more, but they at least have like a base level knowledge of how this can really be effective. So in white labeling, we can take even like our influencer package, which is the middle tier, the most popular, where you do a ticket a day. Like I was saying, that's one piece of long form content turned into 8 different assets. And you get template sets as many or as little as you want. So it's like we have clients who have 12 template sets and each template set is for a different client. So it's all branded differently. They just know that when they submit a ticket, it's like template set 5 for this client and everything goes into that skin and they know that that's going to be branded for that client. If you know that you get 5 tickets a week and you only want to repurpose one piece of content per client a week, literally one subscription gives you enough to white label for 5 different clients. And we deliver all of our files via Google Drive. So you'll have like a root folder that's your agency name, and then we'll have subfolders that are your agency name plus your client, and nothing is ever branded for us. We actually like strategically moved to Google Drive because of our white labeling relationships, because they were like, we don't want to download your stuff and then re-upload it and it says Repurpose House in the URL. And I was like, all right, let's make it easy for these guys because they're the ones we want to work with in the first place. So it's really simple. And then the nice thing is you can just stack subscriptions. So if you have 10 clients, then we'll give you 2 influencer subscriptions and so on and so forth. And once you build it, we'll discount on 3 and more. But realistically, the value there that you can provide for your clients at the price point is obnoxious. Like to be able to do it at $500 a month max for 5 different clients is huge.
Yeah, super interesting. So you think that most people, if they're using, right, like the influencer program, you think they're doing like a piece a week? Is that how they're like pitching it or selling it? Is it 2 a week? Like, what do you see on your side? Like, do you have any context into that?
Yeah, so a lot of them it's about one a week. So they'll take like their client's podcast or the weekly blog or whatever it is that they know that they are consistently producing. A lot of it is new content. Like they're not actually repurposing older content, which to me is just something that needs to get tapped into even more. Like if you have a podcast episode from 8 months ago that had somebody ridiculous on it, why aren't you consistently repurposing that? Like I can't. Or like a blog that like crushed, continuously send people there. I do not get it. But anyway, so most of them will be like, okay, we have this new content that comes out every week or whatever. And we know that we are, instead of just giving them the blog post and linking out to that on Facebook or whatever, now we can also give them assets to utilize that like across all the different platforms. Now it's video, now it's image quotes, it's all that stuff. So for them, it becomes a massive value prop to give to their clients instead of just the one piece of content, to be able to break it up into a ton.
And then do you think like the agencies that you're working with, are they selling this as a service directly? Or are they adding this in as like maybe some value that they're doing just to try to sell a package? Like any thoughts there?
Yeah, so the majority of them are doing it as like a bonus. Like if they know they have 5 clients, it's really like $25 a week for each client. So for them, they're like, okay. But we do have other clients who are like, they sell it for way more than what we're selling it from, and that's fine. Like go get it. You do you, because you have to do some of the work in finding like the content. So that's if they're making money on it, then that's a win for everybody, right?
Yeah, that's amazing. This has been a really freaking good interview. So any final tips as we zoom out? I want to end it not immediately, but very shortly as we zoom back out. And any big things that you think maybe we're missing or you think definitely we want to make sure everybody hears about?
I think the big thing is what we just touched on briefly, is taking content that has traditionally done really well and not forgetting about it. Like, don't let it die. It's not like, that's literally the first thing we say in our explainer video is stop letting your content die, because it doesn't have to. You've spent time, money, energy creating all of this content. And I'm hoping that if you've created a bunch of it, something has done really well for you. Like, if not, then there are probably other things to focus on. But taking content that is done amazingly for you and consistently driving traffic to it. For me, the best practice you can do, the most effective way that you can get repurposed assets to help you, is to know that it's coming from an existing piece that's really effective, that you can get opt-ins, leads, sales on, and then repurposing that to then drive back to the site. Like you should constantly be sending people to that page that gets the most for your business. And it blows my mind that people are always constantly worried about chasing the next new piece of content and forgetting about all of the stuff that really did well for you in the past.
Yeah, take the assets that you have and make them work even more for you. Like look at your top, blog posts in Google Analytics, or your top pages, and what are the search terms and what are those pieces, and yeah, drive traffic there instead of haphazardly focusing on the next topic that you're going to record a video on.
Yeah, and the reason that people will tell me is they're like, well, everybody's already seen it or read it. I'm like, everybody? The world has? Like, if that's the case, then you're doing fine. Like, don't worry about all this. But like, people forget that you have a new audience. People have begun to follow you more. And if you're going to push ads, even better. Like, everybody hasn't seen this content. It's not old news. As long as it's evergreen content, still relevant, then absolutely keep pushing traffic to it. You'll always have new, fresh eyeballs.
100%. Yeah, that's a brilliant tip. I just had Tim Solo from Ahrefs on the podcast, and he was talking about how like everybody creates so much content, but they never kind of go back and focus on like the stellar ones, right? And that you should be going back on the stellar ones and really working on revamping them and improving them, and starting to see like when they're starting to age or get old, and revamp that so that you don't lose that momentum and that traffic. And I was just like mind blown, like, whoa, wait, like that's so basic, but yeah, we all move past it.
Yeah, it's true. One of the best tips I got on one of our episodes was that the best advice is the stuff that sounds so obvious when you hear it. Like, and that to me, I'm like, well, obviously just update it to where it, and it's something you just don't think about, but it makes perfect sense.
100%. So I guess to wrap this up and to close it or start closing it, I definitely will link over to Repurpose House. But where are you guys kind of the most active? Where can people follow you? Where can people follow Repurpose House? I want to put that in the show notes as well.
Yeah. So for me personally, my big drive is going to be LinkedIn moving forward. I mean, I've been on all the platforms kind of consistently. It's one of those funny things. Do as I say. You know what I mean? Not as I do. So we're vamping up our social media strategy. But LinkedIn for me is just a platform that is ridiculous not to just engage in consistently. Repurpose House is there. We're Instagram, Facebook. I mean, we're always posting our fun stuff and then client stuff to see kind of what we're doing. Yeah, that's going to be the three places. I'm always at Shaina Weisinger, and Repurpose House on social is Repurpose House Co.
Okay. Yeah. So LinkedIn, by the way, guys, if you're not leveraging the crap out of LinkedIn right now, I feel like it's super low hanging fruit. I'm definitely doing really, really well with LinkedIn. Updating your jobs too and your titles, it alerts everybody when you do that. So nice little tip for everybody. Definitely make sure that you're leveraging that. So, Shaina, instead of asking you to recommend 3 books, we do things a little different here, right? I feel like that's on every podcast. I want to ask you, what's the one book, right, that has made the biggest impact on the way that you do business, right? Like a direct correlation, not just like what was a good book that made you think, right? Like, but what's a book that made the biggest impact directly on your business?
You know, that's a tough one because there's always like things out of different books that you pull together and it kind of evolves into this mesh of what your business becomes. But I would say the one that I really took to heart the most, and I read it right before I started, well, podcast memes, it was like during that time period, was Leaders Eat Last. I wanted to make sure that I created a culture of like trust and wellness and making sure that everybody kind of felt like they had a voice and they were part of a team. Because to me, what the last thing I wanted to do is create a business that wasn't thriving on the inside. Because all of that is so important to me. So to have that reiterated and to know that I wasn't nuts to be thinking that way was kind of nice. And then I'm going to piggyback on that with it's not really a book, but it's a journal. The Living Your Best Year Ever has 100% changed my life just since starting it. I started about 1.5 years ago. And if you haven't heard of it or used it, go get it and buy it for somebody else to be your accountability partner, because it will literally change the things that you can accomplish in a much shorter amount of time are pretty incredible, which has been awesome for me.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for those recommendations. And thanks for coming on the podcast. The show's been excellent. I know that people are going to get so much value out of it. And I'm really looking forward to doing some business with you as well.
Awesome. Me too. Thanks, Joe. I appreciate it.
All right. See you guys.
Now, before you go, I have something extremely special for you. What if some of the top entrepreneurs of our entire industry went a little nuts and decided that they give away their best products for free? Well, forget the what if. This is actually happening, all right? These top entrepreneurs join me, and we are now running a contest to give you their best products absolutely free. And you don't want to miss out on this amazing opportunity. So go check it out at digitaltriggers.io/contest. And I want you guys to understand that yes, this is a contest, but there is quite literally something for everyone. So just by joining, you are a winner. So go check it out at digitaltriggers.io/contest. Again, that's digitaltriggers.io/contest. And guys, again, this is a limited time contest. So go ahead and do it now before it's too late. We'll see you on the next episode.